We continue our coverage with where this decision leaves doctors in Wisconsin and its impact on minority communities. For that, I'm joined by Tiffany Green, a UW-Madison Assistant Professor of Population Health Sciences and Obstetrics and Gynecology. Good morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to start with where OBGYNs are handling this decision. How does this affect the care they provide or even the training that UW is giving students?
So I will say that, speaking on behalf of myself and not my department, I will say that UW Health is still considering all of its options, as is the School of Medicine. And because things are in such legal flux right now, the Evers administration has obviously announced its intention to fight these restrictions in court. But everything is just so up in the air right now that it's just hard to say what's going to happen in the short and medium and long term. What I can say is that this is going to have a devastating impact in general on obstetrics and gynecology training. This is an essential part of being an obstetrician and gynecologist. There are conditions such as ectopic pregnancy, for which the only medical treatment is abortion. And there are a myriad of reasons why people seek abortions. And this is fundamentally impinging on a doctor's right to provide a whole and complete care for their patients.
Do you personally fear where some of that decision making might leave people like you when you have to make a split-second decision?
So luckily, I'm not in a position where I have to make those decisions, as I am an economist in population health sciences housed in both population health and obstetrics and gynecology, which thankfully gives me a unique vantage point. And I am worried about what this portends for the future in terms of training for people in these subspecialties, and being able to make the decisions that they need to make. Already, we're seeing across the country people talking about having to have a patient wait for hours with ectopic pregnancies and other conditions to make sure that the doctor won't lose their license for giving them the medical care that they need to be given. And I think we're going to hear about more and more of these as all of this is in legal flux.
Absolutely, and at the heart of all this, the life of the mom. So let's talk about the data about Black women in Wisconsin. The data's pretty clear. Black women are far more likely to die during pregnancy than white women. How will this question of how and when to give life-saving care affect them?
Yeah, life-saving care, it's very and intentionally vague. What's the line between serious medical condition and somebody's going to die? I'm so glad that I don't have to make those decisions every day, which is why we need to leave that up to doctors. In terms of Black birthing people, you're right. Actually, maternal mortality rates or pregnancy-related mortality rates are lower in Wisconsin, but disparities are wider, right? And so we know from some estimates that demographers and other scholars have produced that this is likely going to exacerbate pregnancy-related mortality, which is already on the rise, in part due to COVID, right? So with these bans, I think it's very likely that we're going to see more pregnant people dying, and we know that Black pregnant people are going to be disproportionately likely to suffer from these restrictions to medical care.
What do you fear most about these family and personal impacts on marginalized communities in Wisconsin after this ruling?
Well, as I tell people all the time, there are a lot of people in Wisconsin that were already living in a post-Roe world before this decision, before the Dobbs decision. If you're living in the north of the state, you have to come down to Madison or Milwaukee or surrounding areas, or even go to Illinois or Minnesota to get abortion-related care. So for these people, they were already living in a post-Roe world. And my worries for people that are living in rural communities and or are economically deprived and or are from other historically excluded groups, I'm worried this is going to exacerbate their health conditions, exacerbate economic challenges, so many things that we know restricting access to abortion is associated with.
If I may, on both a personal and professional level, I mean, this week has to have been a lot for everyone in this field in Wisconsin. How have you weathered the news, and what did your week look like?
Yeah, it has been a challenging week. And what I say to people is, regardless of how you feel about abortion on a moral level, we have very clear evidence that it's causally related to worsen health and well-being when people are restricted to that. And I think it's been challenging, of course, knowing the data, knowing the evidence, knowing that people are likely going to die, and that infants are likely going to die, and that it's going to result in worse health. So I think what I've had to do is really focus on the things that I can do, talking to people like you, making sure that the people of Wisconsin and nationally have the facts, have the evidence about what we know about what abortion restrictions do to health and well-being. And I think with that kind of information comes empowerment. And if I can give that information to someone and empower them to act accordingly, I think that's a win for me.
All right. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes this morning. Up next, the challenges now facing those trying to leave Wisconsin for their procedures.